Tommy Castor. This is Sports Daily on Wichita's #1 sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
All right, welcome in, everybody, to a Wednesday edition of Sports Daily. Glad to be here with you. Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor, Jad Chambers producing, joined today by Malcolm Carter, one of our colleagues at Odyssey. We'll get to Malcolm's introduction in just a second, let you guys know who he is. Glad to have him on board. A lot of good stuff coming up today. We will have Kevin Saul, Wichita State Athletic Director, at the top of the next hour, joining us for a bi-weekly visit. We have some fun giveaways to get to today. We've got a little HTO, we got a little Wichita Thunder hockey, and we got a little pro wrestling to give away. AEW coming into town. More on that in just a little bit, but we will have some tickets to give away there as well throughout the show today. The World Series is set. The NBA is underway. We get ready for another football week, and you can chime in on all of it on our IHOP hotline, 869-1240. Try IHOP's new slow-braised beef pot roast or a savory country fried steak. While you're at it, glad to be here, everybody. Tommy, how are you this morning?
I'm good. Another great Game 7 in the NLCS last night. I feel like both of those series, I wasn't sure either one of them were going to be anything spectacular. They both ended up being great. Like you mentioned, we know our World Series matchup. We know the Diamondbacks. We know the Rangers. It's a breath of fresh air. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it'll be a fun one. We will certainly get more into that in just a little bit, but let's introduce Malcolm Carter. Malcolm jumps in. So, Malcolm, you're our colleague at Odyssey, but Little Birdie told us that this is kind of your thing too. So we wanted to get you in here and pick your brain a little bit. How are you today, man?
I'm doing great. Glad to be here talking to you guys this morning.
So let's tell people what is it that you do for Odyssey, for our family of networks here? Like, what's your day job? Tommy and I have day jobs, and then we do this. So what's your day job?
So I'm the regional promotions manager for Odyssey. So I handle a lot of the prize giveaways, a lot of the remote opportunities that we have out in the community. So really kind of the community outreach arm for Odyssey. That's
awesome. And then from the sports world, I've been in the office there, and you've got a Lions jersey.
Yes, sir.
Where are you from?
So I'm born and raised in Detroit, Michigan, but
okay.
Definitely an avid football fan. I mean, I was a football player growing up. So, I mean, it hasn't been a great history for the Lions here, but we've been turning it around here lately.
We'll get into that. Tommy's a hater, of the Lions.
Come on.
Not a believer.
He's not a believer. I'm more maybe in the middle. Our other buddy, Paul Savage, who comes in, is definitely a believer. He's all in with Dan Campbell since Hard Knocks. So we can get into the Lions a little bit today, too. We've got the NBA underway, guys. But, for me, it was kind of paying attention there to the NLCS. That was a great Game 7. It was certainly closer than in the ALCS. And, I'm sort of sick of it today, Tommy, as we read these, like all the sites, and it's, how did the Phillies blow this? 9 reasons why the Phillies blew this series. And I'm like, we weren't watching the same series, because I don't think the Phillies blew it. I think the Diamondbacks went and took it. The Phillies didn't blow that series. The Diamondbacks went and got that series.
What's been really interesting about this particular series is that the Phillies were on fire coming into the NLCS. I mean, the way that they ran through the wild card series, the way that they ran through the divisional series, I mean, it was pretty clear. And then even the first 2 games of the championship series against the Diamondbacks, I mean, they looked like an absolute unstoppable force. And then here come the young guys with the Diamondbacks, and they've kind of flown under the radar a lot this season, I think, because not unlike the Orioles in the American League, they've got a lot of young talent. And I think a lot of people thought, okay, they're talented, but they might actually be a year or 2 away from legitimately contending. And here they are. I mean, they battled back. They won 4 of the last 5 games in the championship series. They really quieted the bats of the Phillies for the most part, outside of a couple of guys in that lineup. And man, just hats off to them. The pitching that, outside of probably Zach Gallen and Merrill Kelly, maybe people don't know a lot of their pitching staff and their rotation that they have. But man, they did a great job in silencing the Phillies bats for the most part, and then really clutch hitting when it mattered the most from guys like Ketel Marte, Corbin Carroll had a great Game 7 last night. He looks to be the presumptive Rookie of the Year in the National League. So, I mean, just overall, they had they were able to take that momentum away from the Phillies, really quiet them down after the Phillies, like I said, ran through the previous 2 series. And here they are going to the World Series.
Malcolm, I'm a huge Rangers fan, so I'm watching that. And everybody's messaging me when the Rangers got in, and it was like, you'd rather see the Diamondbacks than the Phillies, right? And I'm like, I don't know the answer to that, because obviously whatever team wins that game is going to have some momentum. The Phillies have the star power, and that will be interesting. Tommy, you named off a couple of those, bats, Ketel Marte and Corbin Carroll. Outside of that, most people, like casual fans, aren't going to know just about anybody else in their lineup. Baseball fans might, but it is a relative unknown. But they're young, they're upstart, they're good. And that was the thing, Malcolm. I was like, look, the bullpen, they got a better bullpen. They probably have a rotation that's close, and they just got that swag a little bit. And sometimes that swag scares you. And that's as much as anything, like they just wanted to kind of shut people up, and they did.
Absolutely. And I really just want to tip my tap to Torey Lovullo, manager for the Diamondbacks. I mean, it just seemed like they had a game plan, game in and game out to know what they were looking to do. And like you said, pitching was on point, but even we're talking about opportunities when they were stealing bases, sack flies, timely sack flies. So I think just from a game plan perspective, I think that they just went out there and they executed really well. So I definitely agree with you there in terms of people saying the Phillies, just totally blew this. I don't see it that way either. I think that Diamondbacks definitely went into this game knowing that what they had to do, and they executed.
The Rangers are fairly heavily favored here. I think you can get the Rangers now at minus 174 in the series. And I would probably agree with that, Tommy. I would say the Rangers are favored because they can more or less reset their rotation, and their lineup is what it is. It's as good as there is. But, man, their bullpen sucks. And that just feels like it's going to be a factor, whether it's a factor, 4 times or fewer, I guess, is all that matters. But it feels like the Rangers bullpen is going to be a problem in this series, as it has been, as it was in the Astros series. But, first instant reaction when you see the matchup on what you think about the World Series.
Well, I mean, it does make sense as far as where I think the line stands right now between those 2 teams. I mean, I think that it is, pretty appropriate to make the Rangers the favorites right now. But here's the thing. You mentioned the bullpen for Texas. And one thing that the Phillies did, I mean, even going back to last night, they added on runs late in the game. And, really the Phillies bullpen had been pretty stout leading up to this series. Craig Kimbrell was, pretty lights out, like through the wild card series in the divisional round. And then the Diamondbacks just kind of tagged him late in the game. That's something that they were able to do in this last series. And so if they can do the same thing against the Rangers, if they can get to the bullpen and get hits and runs off of the Texas bullpen, at that point, I think it becomes a lot more of an evenly matched series. But I understand where the line is right now, before the series even starts. And you mentioned, a couple of, we talked about Ketel Marte and Corbin Carroll, and the rest of the lineup relatively unknown for the most part. I didn't realize until I actually started watching this championship series that Evan Longoria is on the Diamondbacks. I mean, he's a guy that's been around forever, in the twilight of his career, and he's got the opportunity to win a World Series now. I mean, that's pretty cool to see.
Yeah, look, it's going to be great, Malcolm, one way or the other. I don't, we'll start to hear ratings talk, and is this going to draw? And of course the Phillies would have been, but like, I always contend for baseball. Like, I don't think if you're a Royals fan and a Royals fan only and a casual baseball fan, you're not going to tune in. You're not any more or less likely to tune into the World Series because it's the Phillies over the Diamondbacks. I don't think any baseball team has that sort of appeal anymore. You either watch the World Series or you don't.
No, I agree. And definitely I'm looking at in terms of the Rangers, how well they're able to go up against the Diamondbacks pitching rotation. I think that'll ultimately be what it comes down to. But at the end of the day, like you said, if you're a real baseball fan and this is something that you enjoy doing, then I think that you'll tune in just like the next guy.
Our listeners will all tune in because they want me to, to have my day of glory finally and win a bunch of money. So there'll be a little. I hope there's a little like South Central Kansas rating spike for the World Series.
Hey, I got to tell you, Jacob. So I mentioned yesterday that if the Phillies won Game 7, I would totally be in your camp and cheer for the Rangers because I hate the
you're
Phillies.
about to start cheering.
Now
for
the Diamondbacks are in it. I don't know. I
even
mean,
say
hey,
that.
look, just to keep things interesting and fresh, I might have to jump on the Diamondbacks.
As long as you don't
bandwagon.
start sending me "it's over" texts in the third inning of the first game, I'll be.
No, I will.
I'll be okay.
Here's the funny thing. So when I was doing that, when I was doing that Game 7 to you, and you're like, stop it or whatever, I had this thought. I'm like, maybe he thinks that like I'm an idiot and I don't know what I'm doing and I'm just saying it's over. Now I knew exactly what I'm doing, and I'm going to do it during the World Series too, just to mess with you because I know how superstitious you are.
But people love to do that. Or they're like, oh, it's over. Series is 2-0. It's over. And I'm like, shut up. Like, no, it's not. Like, one, baseball is the sport that showed us you can come back down 3-0 in the World Series. And two, it's baseball, and the Rangers have like the worst bullpen ever. It's terrible. They were awful this year.
So how did they combat that against the Diamondbacks, by the way? I mean,
score a bunch of runs.
You got to score early, but then you've got to lean on like Montgomery and Evaldi and like these other guys to go the distance, right?
No, Bochy hasn't done that. He's going to ride those late inning horses. I mean, he will go Spores 7, Chapman 8, and Leclerc 9. That's what he's done. So I think you combat it the same way you did against Houston. You get to the opposing bullpen. Like you score throughout the game, right? It'd be great if they could just get a big lead and ride that through. That'd be amazing. But in the absence of that, because that's not going to happen in every game, you have to be able to score runs in the 7th, 8th, and 9th inning. You can't just count on, like the Royals of the past, where if you get it to the 6th inning or 7th inning with a lead, you win that game. That's not what it is for the Rangers. So they'll have to score. They'll have to score late in. And we'll have more on that. Game 1 is on Friday. Nice little break here before the start of it. I think both teams will be able to set the rotations more or less however they want. The Rangers will probably go Evaldi in Game 1 since Montgomery pitched in relief, but I'm not so sure that's not a better thing anyway. Evaldi's been nails. Malcolm, the other thing was the NBA last. Are you an NBA guy?
Oh, yeah.
So Tommy and I lean a little more into college basketball these days. Professionally, I don't really have a choice. So my NBA watching has waned in the last few years. So night 1, those are marquee matchups. But my problem is like this load management thing always has me questioning, like, can I believe what I saw last night? Like, do I believe that was a good flex by Denver over the Lakers? I think in Game 1 we can, right? But like throughout a season, it's like, well, were they trying in that night? Like, was that a night they were taking off or not? That's what I have a hard time. Like, I can't evaluate the NBA anymore because I can't grasp that piece of it these days.
Well, they made some changes this year to the load management thing, so I think we'll see definitely see some of these games matter a lot more to the players. But last night, I think the Nuggets just had the Lakers number when it came down to it. AD and Jokic was the matchup that I was looking at, and Jokic just continues to dominate that matchup every time.
AD didn't score in the second half.
Yeah, it was a brutal watch for sure. I don't even think he had a free throw attempt in the second half. So just not being aggressive, which I think has been a story for him for a little while now.
I think all 4 of those teams are probably legitimate contenders to a title. Are we overthinking that? Like one of the betting things had a futures booster, and I put it on our boy Adrian Griffin in Milwaukee just because that'll be a fun story to root for this year. But those are 4 contenders, don't you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think with the Suns, I think that
you don't
you've
think
got
Golden State is, Malcolm. Is that what it is?
It's Golden State.
Yeah, I would say out of the 4, Golden State's probably the weakest out of the 4 that played last night. I thought it was funny. I don't know if you saw this, Jacob, but Magic Johnson, you see his tweet last night? He was watching the Nuggets and the Lakers game, and he tweeted something to the effect of
"The sky is blue."
Something. He literally goes, "Well, it looks like the Denver Nuggets are going to be a pretty tough out in the NBA playoffs this year." Like,
Captain
you think?
Obvious.
I love the defending
tweets,
champs.
Yeah,
okay.
But go look at his tweets historically. He's the most. I think it's hilarious because whatever it is, it's going to be the most like Captain Obvious thing ever.
Obvious,
that's
for sure.
That's it. That's who he. Hey, I'm not going to doubt anything he does. I have no doubt that the Commanders will all of a sudden start being Super Bowl winners because anything he touches turns into gold.
I don't know about that.
What are you talking about?
Those Commanders?
No, I just mean what Magic Johnson's done
okay.
historically as a sports executive. No, I'm not saying the Commanders are doing something this year. I'm saying I think they're probably going to be where they want to be with him anyway involved. Everything that guy touches turns to gold. He's an insanely successful player, obviously, but a businessman and now a sports owner. Like he's just really good at it. I don't know what he does, but he's really good at it.
Yeah, I think that'll be a good test for him.
Yeah, well, football. Yeah, I don't know how much he's gonna contribute. Let's talk football when we come back. We're gonna take a quick break. Jad, let's get the giveaways started in style today. So we've got a pair of tickets for you. AEW is coming to town. They've got an event here at Intrust Bank Arena. We're gonna have some guests, some pro wrestling guests on in the next couple of weeks, right? Paul White, former Wichita State basketball player, the Giant, the Big Show. I don't know if he's had any other aliases, but he'll be in studio Friday. I may have to sneak in there and give him a little taste of Mickey Blaze, Tommy. I don't know.
As long as you wear the wrestling singlet or whatever it's called.
Yeah, we'll have to.
Do you have a luchador mask you could put on?
I do have a luchador mask. That's not what Mickey Blaze wore, though. But he don't want that smoke. That's all I'll say. 869-1240. Let's give away a pair of those tickets.
Like a twig.
Let's give away a pair of those. I'm crafty. First caller, Jad. AEW tickets coming to Wichita. 869-1240. We'll come back. Let's look ahead and start to dissect the Chiefs a little bit, fellas. We can get into K-State. Chris Kleiman talking yesterday about their game with Houston this weekend. And then, of course, KU with the big one this weekend. We'll have it all for you. It's Albracht. It's Castor. It's Carter. We'll be right back. right, welcome back into Sports Daily, everybody. Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor, Malcolm Carter here with you. Jad Chambers producing, manning that IHOP hotline. Thanks for listening in. Thanks for watching as well. You can find us on our video stream, which is available to you on Facebook, on YouTube, and on Twitch. All right, fellas, let's start to look ahead to the football weekend. Again, Wichita State Athletic Director Kevin Saul joins us top of the hour. Speaking of this weekend, we've got exhibition men's basketball this weekend. Volleyball is white hot. They're on the road, but lots to get to with Kevin Saul. But let's talk about the Chiefs and the Broncos. You know, it's when we get out to this streak like this, what is it, 16 games in a row or something? It's been a while since Peyton Manning was there. I think we overlook them to some degree, but the reality of this is it wasn't a blowout when they played in Kansas City. Denver just beat Green Bay, which is fine. It's not anything crazy, but they have a 1-point loss and a 2-point loss at home this year. Russell Wilson is not playing badly. He's got 13 touchdowns to only 4 interceptions this year. So it's not like a Russell Wilson thing. It's been the defense. The defense was okay the last time they played Kansas City. Tommy, like, I know we're all going to just like try to pencil the Chiefs in here, but like Denver to me does not feel as bad as sometimes teams with that record might be. They're not good, don't get me wrong, but they're not like the worst team in the NFL here.
The only thing that is difficult about the matchup this weekend is the last time these two teams played a couple of weeks ago, it was completely different than I think what the majority of people thought that it would turn out. I think a lot of people thought that the Chiefs would win, don't get me wrong, but I mean, really before that game, the Denver offense had been pretty good and the defense had been awful. And then all of a sudden they play the Chiefs and it's back to kind of the Broncos that we saw a year ago, where Russell Wilson really struggled against Kansas City's defense. The Denver offense really got nothing going, but it was the Denver defense, which had been really bad for the majority of the season, actually step up and only hold Kansas City to 19 points. So it was a little bit of a different way that Denver played that game against Kansas City. That's what makes it, I think, a little bit more difficult to assess the way that this matchup is going to go, knowing that it was so different a couple of weeks ago than I think at least what I expected it to be.
Yeah, Malcolm, I guess it comes down to, too, the fact that they play this one on the road. Denver's been home for a couple of weeks. I don't know how much you take from the first game. It wasn't that long ago, right? It was just on October 12th. So, like, in the NFL, you get all these different seasons within seasons. But, I mean, do you give Denver any chance here to ugly this one up while the Chiefs continue to, ascend in most aspects of the way that they're playing right now?
Honestly, I'm giving them a pretty slim chance this weekend. I think not only, considering the fact that they just played a couple weeks ago, so you still have that game plan relatively together. But I think with Denver not having Kareem Jackson for this game, I think it's definitely gonna play a part. We're talking about definitely somebody manning up or just trying to guard Travis Kelce. I think it's just going to be a rough spot for them.
Kelce feasted in that game as well. 9 receptions, 124 yards. I believe that was a Swift game, right? So we know how he performs with Tay up in the box. So that game, I said Russell Wilson hasn't been bad this year. He was bad in that game. But here's what was wild about that game, though, guys. Like, Denver was running the ball very effectively. Like, they were running the rock, and that game was close. And they wouldn't keep running the ball. So, like, to me, if there's anything Denver's going to do here, it's going to be to stick with the run. The problem is now, though, Kansas City's offense seems to be one more click up the spectrum than it was 2 weeks ago. So can Denver run the ball and stay in it long enough to establish and keep the run? They had the opportunity to do that the first time. They were running it effectively, and they stopped running it. I don't know, the Chiefs know that, obviously. But, I mean, if I'm the Chiefs, I worry far more about the run than I do Russell Wilson. He was terrible in that game. He probably won't be that bad again, but he was really bad.
Well, and don't you think that also part of the game plan for Kansas City this weekend is to duplicate what they did against the Chargers a week ago? I mean, they limited Austin Eckler for the most part in the game defensively. And then, they got out. I mean, obviously it was, 17-17, but then the Chiefs pulled away and won by 2 touchdowns. The passing game really came to life for Kansas City. So I would imagine it's, hey, rinse and repeat, duplicate what we did a week ago against the Chargers. If the Broncos are going to want to run the ball, and you would think that they probably would with Javonte Williams and Jaleel McLaughlin and, their running game, you would think that they would, be like, all right, what we did a week ago, the pressure we got on Justin Herbert, let's try to get that on Russell Wilson. The fact that we were able to stop Austin Eckler, let's try to do those same sort of things to limit the Broncos running game also. And then at that point, you would think that they can jump out to a bigger lead than what they had against the Chargers a week ago. It should be smooth sailing. I mean, honestly, like, Malcolm said, he's given the Broncos a slim chance. I might even go a step lower than that. I mean, I'm not sure that, the Broncos have much of a chance at all, especially with the way that we saw Kansas City play a week ago.
I will say Nick Bolton's out. Last week against the Packers, Denver did commit a little bit more to the run. They ran it 20 times between Williams and McLaughlin. I would say that's the bare minimum of what they'll need to do if they're going to beat the Chiefs. They played pretty good defensively against the Packers, obviously a very different type of offense. But their defense is going to have to step up and make some plays. I don't know, Malcolm. I don't think Denver's going to win this game. It really comes into, like, can they keep it close? Can they stay within 8, which is where the line is right now?
I think something that they were able to do pretty well in that first matchup was limit those red zone touchdowns, because the Chiefs they're pretty much a given in the red zone for a touchdown. So I think they're able to kind of hold them to a few field goal attempts if they're able to move the ball down the field. I think that's really going to be key for the Broncos, because they're not going to be able to put points up at a high rate, like you say the Chargers would. So I think that's really a key, is that Broncos red zone defense and how they show up.
And that's the thing. If the key, and we all think it is that the Broncos defense is going to have to step it up, that's why I think their chances are really slim, because their defense just isn't very good.
I mean, they did limit Kansas City a couple of weeks ago. So that's why I go back
but to Malcolm's point with some red zone mistakes. And
true.
Kansas City didn't take advantage of its opportunities. It had the opportunities. And I don't know. I mean, Kansas City, I think, will get better at that, but it's been sort of one of their little bugaboos in this great dynasty that they've had. Malcolm, let's take a minute and talk about your Lions here, because we'll talk college football next. They lose big to Baltimore. I don't read too much into that. It seems like a dud game. They got to get David Montgomery back. I think that part is crystal clear to what they want to do. But how, like, as you look at it, as you see the Vikings beat the 49ers on Monday night, like, what is your confidence level and expectation for the Lions this year? Like, do you think that they should be NFC contenders? I don't know if I've got them quite that high, but, like a divisional winner, I don't know. Like, they seem a little bit limited. Where is Jamison Williams, by the way? But what are you feeling like as a Lions fan right now?
I'm feeling still pretty good. I mean, honestly, I think just the culture we have built in the facility is that, look, like, that was what it was. Now let's move on. Let's move on to the next game, and let's keep on pushing. I definitely agree there with the David Montgomery piece. And I think even the coaches, they speak to this as well during some of their post game conferences. It's like, we're a balanced offense. We're run and pass. We really like to kind of keep that about 50-50. So I think when we're kind of forced into those obvious passing situations, I think that sometimes that can be a challenge for us. I think we're still kind of struggling at the guard spot there. So I think that plays a part in it too. But honestly, my faith in the team hasn't wavered too much. I mean, I was concerned that Lamar was going to beat us through the air anyway, just because we're a little banged up in the secondary, especially with Brent's just getting back. So I'm not all too concerned. I still think that we're one of the top 4 teams in the NFC. So we'll see.
One of the top 4, so that would be San Francisco, Philadelphia, Dallas, Detroit. Probably, is that your 4? Yeah, I think that's fair. I'd be worried about Minnesota a little bit if I was you. I'm gonna be honest, Malcolm. And I've been on them all year, and I knew it was going to be tough out of the gates. They get a soft schedule coming up. They don't have if they can survive here without JJ, and their defense continues to get better with that soft schedule, I think you might need worry a little bit.
I'm not worried.
About the Vikings.
I'm not too worried about the Vikings. I think especially if you watch that Monday night game, they had a couple of things fall their way. Some turnovers there. Christian McCaffrey usually isn't a fumble guy. So I think they definitely had a lot of things go their way. We're talking about the Moody missed field goal. That changed the outcome of the final drive there because they probably wouldn't have had to go for the touchdown if they were to get that field goal there. So, I mean,
but haven't they had the opposite luck too early on? Like that stuff sort of evens itself out in the NFL a little bit. Like you have all the bad luck, unless you're the Chargers. You have all the bad luck, and then you have all the good luck. I don't know, Tommy. I still think if I'm Detroit, I'm moderately worried about Minnesota.
Well, I mean, I think that you look at what Minnesota's done the last couple of weeks, and also the fact that they're doing it without Justin Jefferson, what they've done. And then the fact that, the Lions they go into Baltimore and get trounced. And so, I think that to Malcolm's point, if the culture in Detroit is, all right, we throw that game away, we move on, we forget about it, we get back to work, then okay, like that works. That being said, though, if that's not the way that it ends up going and we start to see a little bit of a slide from Detroit, I mean, I think we can all point back, if that happens, to the game against Baltimore. Like that's where it started for Detroit, where things started to fall apart. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but if it does, and then the fact you've got Minnesota, I mean, the momentum has shifted between those two teams. The Vikings are now just 2 games back in the division. You mentioned the defense getting a little bit better for Minnesota. Justin Jefferson, we think, will be back in relative short order. So, at that point, I'm not saying that it's going to be likely that the Vikings overtake the Lions because, again, still 2 games back, and 2 games in the NFL can be quite a lot to overcome. But I think that it definitely has the potential to get interesting later in the season between those 2 teams.
Yeah, and I think the Lions, we always kind of struggle with those rushing quarterbacks. I mean, you could look to some of our games last year against Justin Fields. Those were shootouts. And I think we all know Kirk Cousins is not a mobile quarterback. So I think that's just something
he's lethal in the pocket if he's not under fire.
Yeah, but I think we'll be able to touch him up a little bit. I mean, we didn't even put a scratch on Lamar on Sunday, so I think we'll get that corrected as well.
They don't play until the end of the year. I'm gonna point something out, Malcolm, that you don't want to hear, and none of the Lions fans want to hear. Okay, their wins this year, Chiefs, obviously that's the big one, but outside of that, it's Falcons, Packers, Panthers, Bucks. They basically have beat up on the NFC South and then a bad Green Bay team. Their losses are to good teams, right? Seattle and Baltimore. Now, the good news is they've got a soft schedule.
We do.
Like they don't. You look after they'll play the Raiders this week, and then after the bye, it's Chargers, Bears, Packers, Saints, Bears, Broncos, and then the final 3 weeks of the season they'll be tested 2 against Minnesota and 1 in Dallas. But I mean, their schedule is soft. So is Minnesota's. It must just be the luck of playing the NFC North this year. Then you get into the postseason, and it's like, okay, but now you're going to have to play San Francisco, Philly, Dallas. We'll see him heads up against. I just think there's, no matter what happens in the regular season with them, there's always going to be a doubt because their schedule sucks. Like they're just not. They shouldn't be tested a whole lot down the stretch.
Yeah, I agree with you to a fault. I think that we will see some good defenses along the way. And I think that'll ultimately kind of prove to show that we're a better team than what we did against the Ravens. And when you're thinking about, we're pretty much down 21-0 like at the start of the second quarter. That completely changes our game plan. Like I said, we're a balanced attack. So I think that not getting ourselves in those situations, like most NFL teams, you don't want to be down that much at the start of a game. So I think that, the rest of the schedule, I'll definitely have that Chargers game circled. That'll be on the road. I definitely want to see how we show up that game. I think that game will kind of tell us a lot. I think the Chargers are able and Justin Herbert's able to kind of open the playbook up on us. Then we might be in trouble.
They'll get Montgomery back for that game, surely. All right, let's take a quick break. Tommy, let's give away some hockey tickets. What do we have for folks?
Yeah, so Friday night, Intrust Bank Arena, the Thunder take on the Cincinnati Cyclones. We'll give you a family 4-pack of tickets to the game Friday night. Puck drops at 7:05.
All right, 7:05, 4 tickets to the Thunder this week, Friday night. We'll give them to our first caller, 869-1240. Jad will get us a winner. We'll come back. We'll talk a little KU K-State. We've got Wichita State Athletic Director Kevin Saul coming at the top of the next hour. Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor, Malcolm Carter. We'll be right back.
97.5 and 1240 KFH.
Get ready to start the NFL week off right with FanDuel Sportsbook, the official partner of KFH. All customers can get a no-sweat same-game parlay for Thursday Night Football. Just place a 3-leg same-game parlay on this week's game between the Bills and the Buccaneers, and you'll get bonus bets back if you don't win. NFL same-game parlay is the perfect way to combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payday. Build your own, or choose from one of the popular SGPs pre-built for you in FanDuel's top-rated sportsbook app. The promo code is my name, Ted. Visit FanDuel.com/Ted. Don't miss out on your chance to get a no-sweat same-game parlay on America's #1 sportsbook. FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. 21 plus and present in Kansas. Refund issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets. Expire 7 days after receipt. Max refund $5 unless otherwise specified. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. FanDuel is offering online sportsbook trading in Kansas under an agreement with Kansas Star Casino, LLC. Gambling problem? Getting help with your best bet. Call 1-800-522-4700 or visit ksgamblinghelp.com.
Save big money on your next project with 11% off everything. Turn any room into a modern space with Mastercraft Moldings. Pre-finished moldings are ready to install and are an easy way to add beauty to your home. Save time and money with 11% off all Mastercraft molding right now at Menards. Good through October 29th. Savings are a mail-in rebate. Some exclusions apply. See store for details.
Love that chicken from Popeyes. That's right. Everywhere I go, people all over Wichita are screaming. Love that chicken from Popeyes.
They make it fresh. They make it hot. Lunch, dinner, late night snack. It's always fire. And I love that chicken from Popeyes.
Hurry in to Popeyes right now. Try the all-new sweet and spicy wings for just $5.99. They're so good. And as sweet as they are spicy.
I hear you on them sweet and spicy wings, but how about putting a smile on the entire family's face with the Popeyes Family Feast for just $30. That's 6 pieces of chicken, 2 chicken sandwiches, 2 large sides like red beans and rice or mashed potatoes with Cajun gravy and 4 buttermilk biscuits. There's nothing better than a box of Popeyes chicken.
Wings, hidden sandwiches, tenders, nuggets, and that oh so good bone-in chicken. Popeyes has it all.
Dine in, drive through, big deals on the app. Get into Popeyes today and let them hear you sing.
Love that chicken from Popeyes.
Hi, this is Delana at Truck Stop. As summer winds down and autumn creeps in, you know that you can expect to see deer. Make sure you can see them and anything else in your path with lights from Baja Design, Vision X, Oracle, and KCI lights. You can also protect the front of your truck or SUV with heavy-duty and American-made bumpers or grill guards from vendors like Fabcore, Ranchman, Weston, and others. Support your neighbors by shopping the options and getting professional recommendations right from your store. It's deer season at Truck Stop, the corner of Central and Washington.
Every morning, there's a difficult decision to make. Which Spangles breakfast bowl are you going to pick? There's the sausage bowl or the bacon bowl, both with country-style gravy, or the fiesta bowl with salsa, cheese, and jalapenos, or the pancake bowl with sausage. Pick up a breakfast bowl when you're on the go. Spangles, where breakfast just tastes better.
Spangles tastiness in 4 different varieties. Forget cold cereal and start your day hot and fresh with a Spangles breakfast bowl.
Spangles, it just tastes better.
If you crave an extra special great tasting margarita, stop by Spangles for our extra special mango margarita. Old tequila with the sweet and wild flavor of mango brings you a great tasting margarita combination for a fruity, tropical drink. To try the new Spangles Mango Margarita, only here for a limited time. Spangles, where cocktails just taste better. Spangles reminds you, please drink responsibly.
Spangles, it just tastes better.
Hurry up!
Go away.
Yeah, we'd all like to. Hot water hog.
That's it, family meeting. We can all enjoy long, steaming, hot showers, even the last in line, which it seems is always me. But go ahead, have that imaginary argument of what you should have said. Take your time. With our new high-efficiency Natty and Tankless water heater, you'll take a cold shower again.
Discover, this is Danny.
Hi, it's Jen Coolidge. I just want to thank you for making me feel so special. I earned cashback on debit for my dinner party groceries.
That's great. But with Discover Cashback Debit, we give everyone cashback on everyday purchases. Anything else I can help you with?
Are you hungry? Because everyone left after the asparagus sorbet.
Introducing Discover Cashback Debit, a checking account with cashback. It pays to discover. Eligibility and terms at discover.com/cashback debit. Discover Bank, member FDIC.
Oh, okay, take it easy. We're going on the air.
This is Sports Daily on KFH.
Congratulations to Mike for winning our family 4-pack of Wichita Thunder hockey tickets. Have a good time there, Mike. On us here at Sports Daily, thank all of you for listening to us. Kevin Saul, Wichita State Athletic Director, joining us top of the hour. Jacob Albracht here, Tommy Castor, Malcolm Carter, as we're introducing Malcolm, one of our colleagues here at Odyssey. Now, Malcolm, I'm sure that you are a younger man than Tommy or I, which is good, right? Because we can use a little infusion. I lean on the younger people at the TV station in one of my other jobs to keep me apprised of, like what's hip, basically. Like, what am I missing here on a term? Am I using that correctly? Like, what does that mean? So that will be nice to have you as a resource in that way, because look, you get a little older, you start having kids, and it's just like it's gone. Like, you just look back and you're like, what happened? When did I get old? And where did, I don't know what's happening anymore. Like, the terminology, it's wild. So that will be good to get you in here to keep us. No cap, Malcolm.
Don't say.
Oh man.
I learned about cap not too long ago.
That was a little forced there.
Is cap even still in? Like, I feel like it's old enough now that it's probably out. Is cap still a thing? Like, are we still using that?
Yeah, people say, no cap or you capping. It's like, I'm not lying or no lie, those type of phrases.
Yeah. No cap here.
No.
K-State and Kansas have, I feel an infusion of youth. I like it. K-State and Kansas both have good opportunities this weekend, fellas. K-State certainly a heavier favorite. K-State is favored by 17.5 points in that game. And we'll get to picks Friday, but that's wild. That's a big old line. KU is getting 10. Now, what's interesting is we had Shreyas Laddha on Monday, Tommy, who said there was some optimism that Jalen Daniels might be able to play. But then later in the day, Lance Leipold said, I think his quote was, he's probably doubtful for this one. So if you take the average of probable and doubtful, maybe that's questionable. Like, I don't know.
Somewhere in the middle.
So I don't know how optimistic we should be. The thing about what we do know now, because K-State's got a quarterback thing going on too, coaches don't have to say anything in college. Like, they just don't have to, so they're not going to. And I don't know how we ever guess if Jalen Daniels is going to play. I don't know how you ever bet Kansas until literally right before the game, when you do know if he will or won't play. And in a game like this against Oklahoma, I do think it matters. I appreciate what Jason Bean has done, but I'm not going to give Kansas probably a chance to win this game with Bean. I don't think. But then Oklahoma almost lost to UCF. So I don't really know what to expect Saturday with the Jayhawks.
But don't you think that if we have a hard time guessing if Jalen Daniels is going to play on Saturday, Oklahoma is going to have a hard time guessing if Jalen Daniels is going to play? And I know that, like, they're different. There are some similarities, don't get me wrong, between Jalen Daniels and Jason Bean, but there are some major differences as well. Jason Bean relies on his legs a lot more than Jalen Daniels does. And so, it's kind of, to a lesser extent, but kind of like the way opposing teams have to game plan for Kansas State with Will Howard and Avery Johnson. You're not exactly sure what you're going to get. It's a different situation. It is apples and oranges, but OU, that, I think going into this week, I do think that it plays a little bit to the advantage of Lance Leipold to play coy and to not to reveal if Jalen Daniels is probable or likely to play or whatever, because then you're basically making Oklahoma game plan potentially for two different quarterbacks in the matchup. Will that ultimately matter in the game? I don't know. Probably not. But I do think that it can be strategic for Leipold to keep that under wraps a little bit.
But here's my other problem, Malcolm, is if OU was overlooking UCF and looking ahead to Kansas, and I don't know this about OU, right? I know OU beat Texas, but is there any chance that was their letdown game and nobody else is going to get that chance again? Or is OU just not quite that good? That's what I still have a hard time with the Sooners. They beat Texas, so they've done their thing. But was the UCF thing, was that a slip up, or are they just not that good? I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, I'm not calling that UCF game a fluke. I was able to sit and watch that game. I think UCF was definitely able to show some.
And they got their quarterback back.
Yeah, I think they exploited some things in Oklahoma's defense that I think that definitely Kansas will be kind of keying in on. I mean, UCF they had some bigger guys on the defensive side too, and they were putting it to Oklahoma. Man, it was a physical game at a point. So I definitely think that UCF was not something that they were necessarily overlooking. But I think technically, they really just came in and got it to them.
So we'll talk much more about K-State tomorrow because we'll have Tim Fitzgerald on, and then Friday, obviously, we'll have Wyatt Thompson. But real quick look at the Wildcats. Chris Kleiman talked yesterday. He basically isn't even playing coy anymore. He's like, guys, we're not going to know till Saturday when he's asked about the quarterback question. And again, it's because he doesn't have to answer it. But I had people messaging me like, why don't they put Avery Johnson and I'm like, they're on pace for 700 yards of offense at that point when they were just blowing them out in the first half. I'm like, this is clearly working. This is what they're going to do. And why would they not do this until what happened Saturday? Really what's happened the last 2 weeks, right? Because if you look at the Tech game, Tech was giving them the run to Avery Johnson. So they just rolled with Johnson. Well, TCU wasn't necessarily giving them that, so they alternate, and Will Howard can carve them up a little bit. It really was perfect case scenario, I think, for the coaches, and I don't think there's any reason for them not to just keep banging that drum until it doesn't work. They've got a big one that they don't want to overlook either. They probably have the benefit, Tommy, of the fact that Houston just played Texas tight to not take them lightly. I think that, and the other thing for K-State is if any team knows this, it's K-State. You got to bring it every week in the Big 12 or what happened against Oklahoma State will happen to you.
Yeah, I think it was real easy at the beginning of the conference season to look at a schedule and say, okay, we're playing UCF or BYU or Cincinnati or Houston. Okay, that you go ahead and mark that down as a win. It's not as easy as that at this point. And I know that, a couple of these newcomers in the Big 12 have struggled. They've, kind of gotten their growing pains a little bit, here and there, entering a brand new conference and all of that. But I mean, last week is a perfect example. UCF hung with Oklahoma, Houston hung with Texas. We've seen BYU hang with teams throughout the course of the season as well. So I do think that it is important for Kansas State to absolutely not overlook Houston this weekend because of what we saw Dana Holgerson's squad do a week ago against the Longhorns. I don't think that's the way Chris Kleiman's squad is built. I don't think they're built to overlook teams. And really, after what we saw Houston do a week ago, I don't think K-State will overlook them.
Malcolm, real quick, you on board with the 2 quarterback system?
Yeah, I think it can work for sure.
Yeah, it has worked for 2 weeks. We'll see if it does again this week, and then you've got the big one against Texas. So we'll keep our eye on that much more on those matchups throughout the week. When we come back, we'll shift gears a little bit. Wichita State Athletic Director Kevin Saul joins us as the volleyball team is on fire, as the basketball teams get ready for exhibition openers. And fellas, we are close to the start of the college basketball season. That is wild to think about. But it's almost here. All right, Sports Daily, Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor, Malcolm Carter coming back at you, joined by Wichita State Athletic Director Kevin Saul right after this.
Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor. This is Sports Daily on Wichita's #1 sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
Hey, Shocker fans, want the latest on Wichita State athletics? Let's go right to the source with Shocker AD Kevin Saul.
And welcome back into Sports Daily, hour number 2 getting underway. Happy to be joined by Wichita State Athletic Director Kevin Saul. Kevin, you've got Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor here this week, as well as Malcolm Carter, one of our colleagues here at Odyssey that's stepping in and having some fun with us today. Boy, between volleyball, the start of basketball, busy time in Shockerland there. I imagine things are feeling pretty good on this rainy Monday, or Wednesday. What day is it?
All good. We just appreciate being on your show, guys. It's a great time of year. As you mentioned, volleyball's doing a great job. Golf's just wrapped up their fall season. Basketball's kicking off this weekend and next week. So we've got our plates full and anxious to get things going.
Let's start with and spend some time with men's basketball here, Kevin. You guys have the big exhibition coming up on Sunday. I just wonder for you, and when you have this new era in, not just for you, but really everybody in the building there, new players, new coach, an exhibition like this feels, I don't know, a little larger, a little maybe more meaningful than it typically might when you have all the new faces. What's the level of buzz and excitement to get this one out of the way?
Well, we're certainly excited. There's no question. I think there's a natural level of excitement when you start any sports season, right? When it's late March, early April, and baseball's getting ready to get going, or late October, early November, you've got that anticipation. Everybody's got a clean slate. And I think you're right. I think there's some eager anticipation on the part of Shocker Nation just to learn and see and feel and hear what this new era is going to look like. And I think they will see some distinct attributes or traits that will be attractive and appealing to them. I'm really excited about where we're headed. But it is a we component. Our players, most importantly, are incredibly excited to get going. Coach Nooner, Coach Mills, their staffs ready to get it going, because you get into that regular rhythm now of planning and preparation, execution, evaluation, planning and preparation. So I know they're both very much looking forward to getting the journey started.
Kevin, we talked to Coach Mills last week on the show, and about, a handful of the players and kind of what he's seen so far. A player that the newest member of the men's basketball team, Dalen Ridgenall, I know went to Greece with the team last minute, right? I mean, was kind of like the last second addition to the roster, and then was able, and then had a great trip to Greece. Knowing that, you had a chance to be around him and knowing that he's the newest member of the team. And I think that that might be the one player that at least I'm most excited to see what his role looks like, the transfer from Missouri State, just because, he came in late. So what have you seen from him, just as far as the kind of guy that he is, the character that he's got, and what he can bring to this team?
I think just first and foremost, I appreciate you mentioning the type of a person that he is. He's an excellent young man. He's very, very easy to talk to and engage with. He's excited about being here. He's got a great family. We had an opportunity to meet his aunt when they were in town, right before Greece. And just a great young man. Works really hard on the basketball floor. He's a great student. Obviously, he's a grad transfer from Missouri State and performs well academically. On the basketball floor, highly efficient. I'm sure Coach Mills has walked you through most of these elements. He's a ball hawk. He's likely to be one of our leaders on the rebounding side, both offensively and defensively. He's got a nose for the ball. He's not afraid to stick his nose in the middle of it and really get after the 50-50 balls. He's been a highly efficient offensive player as well. I think he might have ranked in the top 10 as an individual, efficiency-wise, in the Missouri Valley Conference last year. So we're incredibly excited to have him along with us on the journey.
How you doing, Kevin? I'm going to stick to talking about some of the new players you have bringing on to Wichita State this year. And one guy that I've kind of been penciling in is Harlan Beverly, transferred from Miami. I don't think throughout this offseason that what he'll be able to bring to the table is being talked about enough. So can you kind of speak to what you see from him, maybe from, if I don't know if he'll be playing at the guard or maybe like the wing spot, just what you think he'll be able to bring to the team?
Yeah, I'm going to leave where they're slotted to play up to Coach Mills. He certainly has great thoughts in terms of how he's to be used. My perception of Harlan is obviously a really impactful player. I think he played in 27 games for the Final Four Miami team last year. So a significant contributor. I think also an excellent, and maybe most importantly, an excellent young man. He's got a great sense of humor. He's a joy to be around. He'll be a great locker room and culture guy as well, as having the ability to move the needle for our team on the floor. So he's been a lot of fun to be around, and I think he's one of the glue guys on our team. So again, a relatively broad group of guards, all with different skills and abilities, but certainly has proven his ability to contribute at the highest level, playing in 27 games for a Final Four team.
This is what's so interesting about this. Wichita State Athletic Director Kevin Saul, we've been doing this now for months where we're just sort of, and I don't, this may not be a good analogy. We're sort of throwing darts trying to learn about these players, but it is rather unique, right? To come in this situation when we just don't know really anything. And I think that adds to the anticipation for Shocker fans, is like all the different kinds of backgrounds, all the different kinds of experiences, very little that carries over. It's like this clean slate, and everybody's like starved to like see it in action. And I think that's why there's this early buzz as much as anything else, is there's just so much unknown.
Well, I can certainly appreciate that. And all of the attributes and adjectives that you just described, Jacob, can be attributable to the NIL and transfer portal era. I think you're seeing that dynamic broadly across the nation. So there's a lot of anticipation and excitement that would normally be there, but also with new era, new coaches, significantly new roster. I certainly can see how that has been the case. My interactions with our season ticket holders and donors have been awesome. We've renewed at about a 93% level from last year. To be fair, we were down a little bit last year, and we talked about that. So our efforts to reclaim the season ticket accounts that dropped from 2 years ago to last year We're a little over a third of the way there in terms of headed in the right direction there. We have done a lot of things in terms of open houses where fans can come in and watch practice, and we've marked seats in the lower bowl. There's less than 100 in the lower bowl that are available for purchase, either as a season ticket, a mini plan, or a single game. And so we've offered an opportunity for folks to come in and watch practice. We've had our ticket office and fundraising and development staff available to kind of walk folks through the options. And we've done a nice job. I think our fundraising and development folks have hosted 2 community events, one at Hutton, the other at SPT Architecture, where those businesses had an opportunity to invite their clients in. And then we had an opportunity to invite a broad mixture of folks to meet both men's and women's basketball head coaches, assistant coaches, and staff. I think those events have helped create a little bit of buzz and have helped produce some more season tickets. So we're trying to reverse the trend. I think we're headed in the right direction, and we're just doing it a handful of folks and a handful of tickets at a time.
Kevin, I want to shift gears here to volleyball. I mean, they are red hot right now. 9-1 in the conference, 15-5 overall, a 7-game winning streak. Talk a little bit about what you've seen from Chris Lamb's squad and just how kind of the vibe about how great they've been playing recently.
Yeah, first and foremost, we have a group of fantastic people, and they're a joy to be around. Coach Lamb obviously has been here for over 2 decades. And what I've noticed in the last 2 seasons is the teams continue to get better every game, every week as the season progresses, which is clearly one of the benchmarks that you want to see. They play a really tough schedule to be sitting at 15-5 and 9-1 with your losses against Notre Dame, Texas Tech, Kansas, Colorado, and SMU, who is we're tied for the lead in the league with SMU right now. Again, playing a tough schedule. So we've got a lot of work to do. You know, we've got the back half of the season where this week we're at Florida Atlantic and at Memphis. So it's a split week where we'll have a little bit of travel, which will present some challenges. We host North Texas and UTSA here. Not to look too far ahead, but we've got a big match against Rice at their place late November, and then finish up with UAB. And so you start to take a look at where your resume fits in. And so when you look at the standings in the Western Division, you've got an SMU that's at 10-1 and a Wichita State that's at 9-1. They just happen to play one more game. They've got a bye coming up, so those will balance out. And so you've got tied percentages there. SMU holds the tiebreaker over Wichita State based on the number of sets won within the 2 matches that we played. We won 3-1 and they won 3-0. So they've got the tiebreaker. So we need them to lose a match here or there somewhere along the way so that we can jump ahead. But then you look at large considerations, and we have gone from a mid-70s RPI to, as of yesterday, we were at a 48. So when you start to approach that low 40s to upper 30s, you're starting to get into the zone for an at-large consideration. So we need to do a nice job as we continue to progress through the schedule. We've got some RPI challenges as we finish the year, so we need to do a really nice job there and continue to do what we're doing, which is improving, winning, getting better, and have all confidence in the world in Coach Lamb and the staff. They're doing a great job.
So I'm glad you brought that up, because that's where I was going to go next. And we've probably asked you this, so forgive me if we have. So the American, at least at the top end, like, is this, because we just the lack of knowledge in volleyball, is this a league where Wichita State can play well, or SMU could play well, not win it, and still get in? Could this be a multi-bid league?
Well, it's a good question. We certainly jotted that down yesterday with our day-to-day volleyball administrator, Alex Johnson. So you've got, from an RPI standpoint, SMU sits at 22. You've got us sitting at 48. Rice is sitting at 56. And so it continues to progress on from there. What you'd like to see is you'd like to see 2 or 3 teams in the top 40. We're getting close as we approach that top 40. And the unique dynamic to this, Jacob, is that we don't have a postseason conference tournament. where your automatic qualifier into the NCAA tournament is decided by that postseason conference tournament. And so it is purely based on regular season standings. Now, that will change next year. We have implemented as a league of ADs, we are going to go back to the postseason tournament because we feel like that will help us increase RPI in the postseason. I think that'll be an advantage for our league. So to answer your question, it's still a little too early. We really need to be in that have a couple of teams in the top 40 to strongly be considered as a two-bid league.
Kevin, some conference news today. Pete Thamel from ESPN reporting that the AAC will be adding Army as a football-only member. I know, obviously, the crossover is not there because Wichita State doesn't have football. We've talked before during your segments with us about Mike Oresco and the expansion and the world of conference realignment. I don't think this has been officially announced by the conference yet, so I'm not sure that you can really comment on that specifically. But overall, where do you stand right now on the conference realignment and where the American is heading?
Well, again, I would tell you, and I don't want to be too repetitive, that have all the faith and confidence in the world in Commissioner Oresco and his team. They have shown the ability from transitions as a part of the Big East to the American Athletic Conference, the moves that have been made within our conference. I don't want to get too far out ahead on that particular story. Definitely don't want to preempt our commissioner and staff and any other institutions. But I have had an opportunity been very gracious in the league to allow me to be a part of listening and learning and discussions associated with realignment throughout the league. I serve on the finance committee, which is a group of ADs and administrators that manage the finances for the American Athletic Conference. And so it gives me some unique insight in terms of where we're headed as a league in all sports, including football. So it's been a good experience. Again, I have all the confidence in the world and look forward to journeying with a great group of institutions and then the leadership within the American Athletic Conference.
Kevin, speaking of the conference, as I'm trying to, volleyball's on a hot streak and we're just looking at things and I see the East-West. I don't know that it dawned on me yesterday. Is that what basketball's doing? Are they going East-West in the league? Are they going to be all one jumbled league? Do we know how that looks?
Yeah, so if you go to the American Athletic Conference website and look at the standings, Jacob, you can see how those are going to be organized. So last year, obviously, it was one continuous league with no divisions. This year, it will be the same, all grouped into one. They won't be regionalized or division-wise yet. And so, again, it makes every game critically important. We do think that at some point that could be a more extensive part of the conversation. I do appreciate the American Athletic Conference and their scheduling. They've been very accommodating. I'll give you a couple of examples. We have got, let me pull up the stats here real quick, just so you guys are aware of what this looks like. We've got 16 games that are on linear TV, and linear basically means the old school cable networks, CBS, ESPN, ESPN2, ESPNU. We have 13 games that are broadcast on ESPN+. So that gives us 29 of our 31 games. That's 94% of our games are broadcast either linearly or streamed. We're going to be on primary CBS at Memphis. We got a bunch on ESPN, ESPN2, ESPNU. And so that exposure has been great. But the league also really helps institutions out. So we've got two swings. We have a Carolina swing, and then we have a Florida swing where we will play back-to-back road games at Charlotte and ECU, and then USF and FAU, which certainly helps from a travel standpoint where you can capture one flight in, one flight out, grab a couple of games as opposed to 4 different flights, helps you from an expense standpoint. And so those are the types of things that the league will be interested in. I know that we will continue to talk about what's the best format competitively, whether it's a full league or we split divisions. We do regular annual opponents. Do we rotate in another division? All of those elements.
Hey, Kevin, I wanted to ask you a quick question here about women's basketball. When I first saw the news about Terry Nooner hire, I mean, I was ecstatic. And I saw a lot of people just, buzzing social media, just saying how great of a hire that was. Can you just talk about what you've seen just from your seat of what you've seen he's been able to do so far with the women's basketball program?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, and I appreciate that question, Malcolm, first and foremost, it's been cultural. We have a really tight-knit group of young women. They've done a nice job in recruiting. They've set the standards. It is one of the more unique family atmospheres that I've been around in a program where everybody feels ownership in that element. I am 100% confident that we were blessed and fortunate to hire an unbelievable human being as our head coach, not only women's basketball, but men's basketball and baseball. And that piece is really important. Is that where it starts in terms of our core values of character and integrity and stewardship and all those things. He's also surrounded himself with Terry Nooner with a tremendous staff and Brooke and Nick and Antoine. Antoine is, as you guys know, is at Wichita South and went to 6 straight state championship games. I think won the first 4 of those 6. He's flipped 2 junior college programs. The entire staff has been plugged into the Missouri Phenom AAU program, which is plugged into many other AAU programs. They've done a nice job in bringing some real talent and great young ladies into the program. Treasure came from Emporia State. She was a Division II All-American, and most folks don't know that Terry's staff recruited against Oregon and Purdue to get her here. And so that was huge. She played for Antoine. We've had a nice little run in the transfer portal of bringing Wichita kids back I shouldn't say kids, young women back to our program. And so we'll continue to prioritize local talent, which I think energizes our fan base. But all in all, they've done a remarkable job. It's going to take a little time to build the roster to where that staff wants it. And I think that's the case in both men's and women's basketball and baseball. It just takes a little time. Anything that's worth value and is successful will take a little time and investment to get there. But so far, just really pleased with where our women's basketball program is headed.
They also have an exhibition game coming up. That one is on Monday. Is that right? Are they Monday?
Tuesday, November. It's on Tuesday, November 1st against Missouri Southern.
November 1st. Yeah, November 1st. So, all right, Kevin, let's so you've got exhibitions there, so you've got November 1st for the women. You've got Sunday for the men that people can, I assume, just hit Go Shockers still tickets that people can check out there.
Yeah, Jacob, I'm sorry, I misspoke. So the men tip off at 1 p.m. on Sunday versus Rogers State. That's the exhibition opener. The women have Missouri Southern, but it's November 1st is a Wednesday. I apologize.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
It was Tuesday, so it's next Wednesday.
Halloween is Tuesday. That's right. Okay, so check it out. If you want to go see those teams in action, both will be new look, new coaches, all that stuff. Kevin, I know it's a busy time. Travel safe if you're with volleyball this week, and we'll be back here soon, and we will have games to talk about in hoops. Cannot wait.
Sounds good. And just don't want to forget to mention our cross-country programs are competing in Greenville, North Carolina this week for the conference championship. It's our first championship. They're both projected to be in the top 4, so it should be really exciting this weekend.
Very cool. Big time at Shocker Land. Head over to GoShockers.com to get the latest and get your tickets over there. Kevin, we appreciate it. We'll talk again in a couple weeks.
All right, go Shockers. Thanks, guys.
There goes Kevin Saul. We'll come back on our way out. Let's do our final giveaway of the day. Let's do some HTO. We'll get you some iced tea and some Brewhouse coffee, one of each. The tea available, more than 25 flavors at Wichita's East or West location or in Derby. The coffee available East and in Derby. Check it out. First caller during the break will get their hands on some HTO. 869-1240 on that IHOP hotline. The three of us will be right back. All right, welcome back, everybody. Glad to have you with us. Malcolm, JB gives you a welcome there. Malcolm Carter joining Tommy and I today for the show, having a little fun.
Appreciate it, JB.
When we were talking about what we were going to go through today last night, I asked Malcolm how up to speed he was on Wichita State basketball. So you went to all the games last year. So what has been your take on all the changes as we were just talking a little shocker hoops here? You optimistic? You in wait and see mode? What do you think?
I'm very optimistic, especially after because I watched Tourney as well. So seeing how Oral Roberts played in and out in March Madness last year, and I think what Coach Mills will be able to bring really is that defensive side of the ball. I mean, I think that from what I heard from a lot of Shocker fans last year was something that we were lacking. So I think he'll be able to kind of bring structure on the defensive side to where we'll be able to play both sides of the ball really well. And if you look at some of the transfers that were brought in, they're all really two-way players. So I'm very optimistic as it relates to the men's basketball season this year.
I think I am too. I think it's easy to be optimistic because you see the preseason expectations. And look, I've heard plenty of people who think that it could be right where they're predicted, which is 8th. But I just feel optimism because there's so much of a better opportunity to be better than that. And, Tommy, we talked for a long time as the coaching process went through and everything. I mean, I think that there needs to be improvement right away, right? Like, I don't think there's any reason based on the roster that we've seen put together here that they can't be, at least in year one here, as good as they have been the last couple of years. And it's hard to evaluate the talent to talent now when there's entire roster turnover. But this is as on paper talented a group coming in here as any that Isaac Brown had before we saw them play, at this point in those seasons in the last 2, certainly.
I think that Paul Mills has done all the right things leading up to his very first season at the helm of Wichita State basketball. It's going to obviously come down to how they play on the court, what things look like in conference, the wins and losses, of course, but the things that he's done to prepare for this first season, working the transfer portal in the way that he has. We talked at length multiple times about the pedigrees of the players that he's been able to grab in the transfer portal, and really kind of the majority of them, probably outside of Jacob Germany being the exception. And I guess Dalen Riginal being an exception also. How some of these other players like Bijan Cortez and Harlan Beverly played at larger programs, but didn't get the minutes and didn't get the time on the floor that, I think that maybe they would have needed to stay at their respective programs. And Coach Mills sought those guys out for a reason, brought them into the program here at Wichita State. So, I mean, I do think that the way that he's gone about building this roster in the offseason, of course, we knew he was going to have to work the transfer portal, but being able to keep a couple of the key members from the team a year ago, like Kenny Poto and others on the team, I think that's going to be important also. So it's going to be a matter of how the newcomers, how they mesh with the returners, and really kind of what that looks like as we get into the season.
As we look bird's eye at college basketball, and it is on the radar because you get exhibition games now for the teams, and KU will get the fun and cool opportunity with Illinois to come up. I think Wichita State and K-State absolutely have every opportunity to exceed preseason expectations. KU's preseason expectations could not be any higher, Malcolm, as we see Hunter Dickinson named as a preseason All-American yesterday. I mean, when we talk about KU doing what it needs to do, I don't know. It's never fair to say it's national championship or bust in college basketball. That's ridiculous. The tournament is too difficult. But I think winning the Big 12, I think, reaching the second weekend, which is usually my benchmark, like those things will have to be achieved here. Kansas has it all in front of them. And I think the other thing for me with Kansas is the defense has the ability day one to be at the level Bill Self defenses usually are by the end of the year. This has a chance. And again, I'm just trying to remember a team on paper that has a chance to be as good defensively as this team does. And I can't. Between Dickinson and then the holdovers, right, with McCullough and Adams and DeJuan, and then you put in Dick, that's 4 guys right there who could be all conference defenders. I think KU's got a chance to explode out of the gates here and flex on people early because of that defense.
Yeah, I think they're going to be really good. And like you said, Hunter Dickinson, he transferred out of Michigan, so that definitely hurt my heart a little bit. But I'm excited to see him with the KU program. I think that Bill Self is going to really be able to unlock all the tools that he has. So I think what's not talked about enough is how good of a passer he is at the big spot. So I think that the expectations for KU are right where they are. I think they'll at least be in the mix for those final 8 to 4 teams comes tournament time. Just off, not even just off on what's paper. I think what you've seen not only from KU but from the players that are playing and the transfers that are brought in. That's some really good freshmen that are coming in this year as well. So I definitely agree that the sky's the limit. Preseason ranking number 1, I think is justified.
I mean, Tommy, it doesn't even matter what the freshmen do at this point. I mean, obviously they're going to add to it, but they're like everything's there, right? Like everything is right there and accounted for already almost. Like Dickinson, I don't think we have to guess at what Dickinson's going to bring to the team with his track record. everything else between, McCullers going to start and Harris is going to start and KJ Adams is going to start and get to start at the 4. Like we already kind of know what's going to happen. And then can any of these freshmen add icing to the cake really with some offensive firepower as much as anything else?
I think really the only concern is a potential lack of depth. I mean, it looks like Bill Self is probably going to run with 9 scholarship players. Of course, Arterio Morris is no longer on the roster, and that's a big time negative. I think he had been probably slotted in to start at the 2. But of course, he's no longer with the program now. And it does look like Zach Clements, at least the last report that I read, is that he'll probably redshirt this season. I don't know if there's been an official announcement on that at this point or not, but it does look like it's going to be relatively thin on the bench for the Jayhawks. And then, to your point, is it going to be Nick Timberlake stepping up and starting at the 2 for Kansas? Will it be one of the freshmen? It was going to
be Arterio Morris.
I mean, it was. So now I think that's the question. So, who takes over there? Is it Nick Timberlake? Johnny Furphy, who is the Australian transfer coming in, will he get starting minutes? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. Elmarco Jackson's on the team. So I do think there are some questions there on the bench.
I can't remember. And again, I'm not good at this because I do sometimes have recency bias, but I cannot remember, Malcolm, a team coming into a year that I feel like is built. I mean, maybe even the Dotson Doak year, like top to bottom throughout the starting lineup, I'm not sure that it all just seems to fit the right way as much as this one does. Like, it seems like these guys all fit together really well. I think the one question I have is offense. And only in this, because Dickinson's going to provide offense. It's part of what he does. But is this the year Harris really steps it up? I mean, we know the stats. I forget what the numbers are now, but we talked about them all year last year because it's one of our favorite bets every game they played. When DeJuan Harris gets double digits, they win games. Does he step it up offensively and become more of a shot maker? I don't know, but it's just like on paper, like this team doesn't lack anything.
Yeah, I completely agree with the DeJuan Harris take there. I think that he'll have to take a big step, not only just being able to distribute the ball, but being able to step up in scoring as well. Because it'll be games where he'll need to, be maybe a 15 or 20 point scorer, but there'll be some games where he'll need to get some guys involved who are maybe getting off to some slow starts. So I think it really does all start with him. He can't really afford too many games where he's scoring, 6 points and he's not, he's barely taking any shots. So I think that's definitely going to be key. And just from a ball handler perspective, maybe when he's not in the lineup, who's going to be kind of pushing the pace will be interesting to see as the year goes on.
Yeah, that's a good point there on who backs him up. But Tommy, do you think that he'll cut it loose offensively this year?
I think he'll have a better opportunity to do so this season than in years past. And a lot of that comes down to the fact that there are question marks at the 2, and so Kevin McCullough is not a score first kind of guy. Now I think he can score, but I don't think he's a score first kind of guy, right? Yeah. KJ Adams, I think, can be a little bit more of that this season than what he was a year ago. Hunter Dickinson absolutely is, right? But they've got to have somebody, and it may end up being DeJuan Harris with the loss of Jalen Wilson to be a score first guy. And DeJuan Harris fit that role a year ago of being the facilitator. And that's great. And he's going to have to continue doing that. But like you just mentioned, that team, the Jayhawks, were better a year ago when DeJuan Harris was scoring. And so I think they'll lean on that a little bit more. And then again, if you've got one of these younger guys or even Timberlake, the Towson transfer, scoring well, then, maybe that does take the pressure a little bit more off of DeJuan Harris's shoulders.
Timberlake is going to be a shot maker, but it's Elmarco Jackson, right?
Yeah.
Excuse me. Elmarco Jackson's the guy we've heard about if there's a freshman that's going to step in. I think, it seems like they brought Timberlake in just to be a shot maker, which this offense totally needs, right? Like, that's exactly what they need, in fact. But if there's a creator out there and it's not DeJuan, most of what at least I've heard is Elmarco Jackson could be that guy, because it was going to be Arterio Morris. Elmarco has been highly touted for a while. And that's the other interesting thing. With all the experience and talent they have, there is an opportunity for a scorer here in this offense. I mean, I don't think there's any doubt about it, Malcolm. Somebody is going to have, and maybe that's DeJuan Harris, or maybe it's somebody we don't even know about yet.
Yeah, I definitely agree. But I think the offense will ultimately run through Hunter Dickinson, though. And something I've been keeping my eye on, and this may be a little bit of a stretch here, but I think running offense similar to how Denver does, having Hunter at the top and just kind of letting guys kind of run around, getting people in position. I think that we'll see a lot of that from Kansas this year, where maybe DeJuan Harris is more in that Jamal Murray role, where he can kind of be he can take those mid-range shots and get to his spots, and he doesn't have to necessarily worry about setting up the offense every possession, because I think Hunter will be able to take some of that off his shoulders. So I think they're in a really good spot for sure.
That'll be, I mean, that we haven't seen Bill Self do that because his bigs have been more like KJ Adams is a big as much as Hunter Dickinson is a big. I mean, it's been a while. So that was, yeah, that's something to keep an eye on. Real quick, K-State, as we're just kind of chatting it up on men's hoop. Tyler Perry, was it Jerome Tang that said he has a chance to be the best shooter in the country or best scorer? K-State, I was worried about them, and I don't know where they'll land in the Big 12. I think they're tournament bound for sure. But like upside of this team is so hard for me to get a grasp of because they lost so much. Like I just really don't know what to expect. But they, Noel's back and they do have. I think not Noel. Sorry, not Marquise Noel.
Naquan Tomlin.
Naquan Tomlin, yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be great if Noel was back.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Naquan Tomlin is back, and I just if Perry's the real deal, and it sounds like they're pretty impressed with him, I think they could be top half of the Big 12 this year. I don't know what the ceiling is, top 3. I mean, I don't know, but really, is tournament or bust sort of a fair and reasonable expectation for them?
Yeah, I think so. I think it is. And look, I think it's going to come down to the highly touted transfers and Tyler Perry and Arthur Kaluma. Those are the two guys that are, going to be tasked with the role of, replacing, if you can, I don't know if you can, but replacing Keontae Johnson and Marquise
Not
Noel.
directly. Yeah, not
Right.
directly you can.
It's going to be a different kind of game.
They could be more balanced than they were a year ago too, Malcolm. And look, in the tournament, it just sort of became the magic of Noel, right? And maybe they don't have to be that this year, because there were so many times last year where we were like, all right, well, what if one of those guys gets shut down, and can they win those games? And we saw a little bit of both of that, but they could probably get away from that this year. Like I don't, even if Perry is amazing, or Tomlin continues his development as such a raw player, or Klum, I do think this will be a little more balanced this year than it was a year ago.
Yeah, I agree. I think that definitely let's not throw them in the Elite Eight conversation, but I definitely think that they'll be prepared. I think that they're going to play hard. But I think is something that we have to sustain throughout the entire year. But I think them being coached up so well, I think that once we're coming Big 12 tournament time, in March Madness, I think that they'll be in the mix. They're definitely not going to lay down for anybody. Every game they're going to compete. So definitely there's going to be some ebbs and flows as the season goes on with any new team. You're bringing in so many transfers, but I think they have the right guys in there to at least be in contention. I definitely don't believe that they should be picked to be in the bottom of the conference, at least top 3.
That conference is going to be gnarly this year.
Loaded.
Man, I cannot
Loaded.
wait. Congratulations to Shannon for winning some tea and coffee from HTO. Enjoy that. This rainy day, man, it's a coffee kind of day. I think like it is raining. Like I got the sump pump in our basement is going for I don't even remember the last time it did that. I'm so happy for everybody that we're getting some of this rain. And if you didn't, hang in there. Hopefully you'll get some soon. Tennessee Titans news that's a little bit interesting. They're going to give, it sounds like they're going to give Will Levis a chance to start. Anybody remember Will Levis?
Oh, yeah.
Will Levis check? Anybody,
Man,
it's been a minute since we've talked about him at the draft, kind of sitting there. Let's touch on that when we get back. The Titans are in sell mode. They're done, apparently. What does that mean for Derrick Henry? But Will Levis, we'll talk about it next on Sports Daily. All right, welcome back in, everybody. Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor, Malcolm Carter here with you. Jad Chambers producing, manning that IHOP hotline. Try IHOP's new slow-braised beef pot roast or a savory country fried steak. By the way, if you can't get enough Kansas City Chiefs coverage, you can check out Locked On Chiefs, which is a daily podcast about the Chiefs for free on the Odyssey app. Follow it on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcast. We are talking NFL right now, and the Titans reportedly are going to pull the trigger and going to say, I guess Vrabel said Tannehill is unavailable, so it's Malik Willis and Will Levis. Interesting. I mean, we have heard nothing about Will Levis since he was drafted. Malik Willis, we saw last year, did not look good. What are the chances, Tommy, either one of these guys are the long-term quarterback you think for Tennessee?
Well, I'm not convinced on either one of them. I mean, clearly Malik Willis is not. They wouldn't have drafted Will Levis if they thought Malik Willis was the future of the franchise. But I understand why they're doing this, because they got to see what they have in Will Levis. And this is an opportunity for them to do so with Ryan Tannehill injured. You mentioned before the break that the Titans are in sell mode. I'm not sure they're quite there yet. I mean, they're 2-4. They're not totally out of it at this point. They've still got Derrick Henry. They've got DeAndre Hopkins. Tyjae Spears has been good so far this season. He's been a good revelation. So I'm not quite sure they're in sell mode quite yet, but they do need to see what they have in Will Levis. So I understand this move.
I don't know. It ain't Malik Willis, I don't think, Malcolm, based on what we saw last year. Can it be Will Levis? I think the reality of the situation for Tennessee is you kind of have to find out right now, because you might be in the mix for one of these quarterbacks in the draft next year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm actually a little higher on Will Levis than most. I think that Vrabel is a good head coach. I mean, I think that he's not going to put Will Levis in a spot that, or any positions that he won't be able to handle. So I think that Will Levis can be the long-term answer. And I've kind of been on this thing for a while now that Ryan Tannehill is just not the guy for Tennessee anymore. So I'll be interested to see how Will Levis comes out if he is deemed the starter. Because I think that he has some wheels. He can run a little bit, but I think that with DeAndre Hopkins and his arm strength, I think they'll be able to push the ball down the field a little bit. If you get some one-on-one matchups with Hopkins, I think that Will Levis can put it out there in a spot where he'll be able to get it, which I think will open up the offense a little more. So I'm keeping my eye on this. I don't know about a full sell mode where I think we'll be sell mode is getting rid of Derrick Henry. I think that's the sign that, like, okay, we're headed out. So
that's the question. You've got 6 days to make that call if you're Tennessee. Halloween is the trade deadline. There are teams that are good that could use Derrick Henry. The Cowboys would jump to my mind, like, first and foremost. I don't. The problem is, one, Vrabel will never be on board with not trying to win every game. So I don't think it's that. But I do wonder, like, if they look at their assets and try to have a mini rebuild, because Tyjae Spears looks awesome. And if you're going to go that direction anyway, don't you have to at least wonder, could Henry flip anything at the deadline here? I don't know. Like, when I see that, it makes it a little curious. Like, why didn't you try this 2 weeks ago? But because they were kind of in it still, but you don't have time, right? I guess they could cut Derrick Henry, but they're not going to do that to Derrick Henry.
Yeah. I think that if things go poorly this weekend for Will Levis, or if it is Malik Willis, whoever it is, if it goes poorly for them this weekend, they fall to 2-5, then yeah, at that point, you've got a couple of days to, consider making a move. I'm just not sure with where the running back market is, what kind of value you're going to get in return at the trade deadline for Derrick Henry. I mean, are you looking at a mid-round pick, maybe like a third or fourth rounder? Is that the value in return for Derrick Henry? I'm not exactly sold on what that would look like.
I would love that if I was Tennessee, to get a third right now for Henry, who is probably
I don't know if that's the
on his
value
way
or
out.
not.
I don't know.
Is that what the market's saying? I mean, or is it more like a fifth or sixth? I don't know.
But if you're a team like that, but it's either that or potentially nothing if you're Tennessee. And Malcolm, like, if you're a team like the Cowboys, who Pollard is clearly not ready to handle that full workload with a desperate owner, don't you at least make that call? If if you're willing to tear it down.
Yeah, I think you got to at least make the phone call, but I don't see Tennessee moving Henry at the deadline. It just doesn't seem like
I don't either.
Titans
Yeah,
move.
I don't think so.
I don't either. And the reason would be because if you're going to try to develop Will Levis, you want Derrick Henry in that backfield to help him.
Yep.
I mean, that's it's as much that as anything. All right, we'll take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll tell you what's on tap today on the network when we return on Sports Daily. All right, everybody, that's it for us. Malcolm, nice job today. Welcome.
Appreciate it. I had fun with you guys.
There's Malcolm Carter. What Malcolm in occasionally here on Sports Daily. Looking forward to it. Jim Rome from 11 to 2. Bob and Jeff 2 to 4. Chiefs Kingdom show tonight at 6 o'clock. And then, that's it. And then at 7 o'clock, we get the Chris Kleiman radio show. Busy night here on KFH. That's at 7 o'clock, I should say. Not Chiefs Kingdom tonight. It is Chris Kleiman tonight on KFH. For Tommy Castor, Malcolm Carter, Jad Chambers, I'm Jacob Albracht. Thanks for listening today, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.